I've got a question for you. Do you think shafts make that much of a difference when you go for a fitting? Well, in today's video, we're going to be looking at the stock shafts that Titleist give us in the fitting packs for the pro shops around the UK. I've got 4 shafts here to test. They're all stiff shafts, which is suited for my golf swing around sort of 105 to 110 mile an hour, depending on how I'm feeling. And we're going to see if actually golf shafts make any difference to the ball flight that I get in the studio and out on the course, but also does it make any difference from a feel? And then we're going to look at the numbers. Down there in the comments, before we even get going, do you think shaft makes any difference whatsoever when it comes to your fitting? So to kick things off, I'm going to do a bit of a blind test. I'm going to hit 5 shots with each shaft before I look at actually what these shafts are supposed to do for me. We're going to look at what the companies are saying about their shafts and see if what I'm getting from the numbers and what they're saying I should get actually kind of correlate. Now for this test, I'm using the TSR2 driver from Titleist, and I'm going to be using it in a 10-degree head in a standard setting at A1. First shaft out of the blocks then, we've got the Tensei Blue AV 55 gram. This one's been around for a long time. So even though Tensei say that it's 55 grams, it's actually 58 grams on this particular shaft that we're getting in the fitting pack. They're saying that we're going to get a mid-launch and mid-spin, so we're seeing a little bit of more, what feels like a little bit of stiffness in the butt of the club, and then in the tip of the club, maybe just feeling like there's a little bit more play, almost getting the sense that we can almost get that club to collect the ball just that little bit easier. I mean, first impressions from a dead weight out on the golf course is it feels, I would say that it feels slightly lighter than what I'm used to, but not a great deal of difference. Now, did I feel kind of stiffness in the butt of the club? Not really with this shaft, but one thing I did notice as I came into impact there is that club head really did feel like it had the sense of catching up with my hands. When I looked up, I kind of saw that ball flight wanting to turn over a little bit on me. If I'm honest, I felt like possibly I did it a little bit down to the right-hand side, but I think just with that club head wanting to catch up with that shaft, that's enabled me to be able to square that face up to the target. D7 is what I'm getting from the swing weight of this, which is about where my kind of swing weight would be in my current driver. I think I'm more around D8, but this is going to feel just a little bit different to what I'm used to. Now for me, when it comes to swing weight, I always find that if I've got a very light swing weight or a lightweight shaft, I'll struggle to, let's say, square the club face up. But being as there's only 1 point in it, I'm not really getting a great deal of sense of difference in what I'm used to at D8. So with that in mind, and the neutral ball flight that I've got, it'd be interesting now to see what the numbers are with this shaft. I'm getting 151.7 mile an hour off the club face, launching it around 14.1, with an average spin of 2,469 revs and an average carry of 259 yards, peaking out at 37 yards high. So from what we're seeing at a mid-launch, mid-spin, I would say that's pretty accurate to what we're getting from our numbers. The next shaft out is the Project X Hazardous Red. This, I would say, is relatively new to the market when it comes to what I've seen in fitting kits with different manufacturers. The CB model Hazardous Red, saying that it's 50 grams in weight, which is actually the lightest of the 4 shafts that we're testing here today. Now, Project X saying that this actually is 51 grams in weight, and it's for players that have a moderate tempo, so players that don't, let's say, launch at the ball or particularly slow, kind of those people that sort of sit in between there, like to just place that club into the position that they want it on the way down. And it's also designed to be able to give us a mid-launch and a mid-spin. Now, to say mid, I mean, that could be a huge gap, couldn't it? But we'll have a little look at what the numbers are giving us. Wow, dead weight, first thoughts, super lightweight. I mean, that is 51 grams in weight, so it is going to feel really, really light, but that is, well, super light. Oh yeah, That felt really, really light. Now, before we head back to the studio and give you the swing weight of this particular club, down in the comments, what do you think it's going to be? Pause it now and jot down there. D5 is the swing weight that I'm getting from this Hazardous Red, which is actually 2 swing weights lighter than what I'm getting out of the Tensei Blue, and is actually probably feeling maybe 3 swing weights lighter than getting out of what I would normally play in my stock driver. So big difference that I noticed certainly on that first shot that we got there was how much higher it looked like that ball flight went out there with this particular shaft compared to the Tensei. That one was a little bit toey, but again, I just get the sense that that ball's gone a lot higher than what I was getting out of the previous shaft. But let's have a quick look at the numbers. So the numbers off the club face, I'm getting 152.4 mile an hour of ball speed, launching it exactly the same as what I'm getting out of that Tensei 55 Blue at 14.1. But my spin has popped up just a little bit more than what I'm getting out of the Tensei, which is kind of what I would expect, and that's more because it's such a lightweight feel to me. I'm getting 2,738 on an average spin, which is picked up, what's that, nearly 300 revs more than what I'm getting out of the Tensei. And then average carry at 257 and just peaking out just a little bit higher. So that extra little bit of spin is just making that ball go a little bit higher in its total in its flight. And then ultimately the carry distance is just dropping off a fraction. Now this is designed for somebody that like we said, with moderate swing speeds, a mid-launch and a mid-spin. I would say this is encroaching possibly on a little bit more spin than I would probably say is mid, considering both of these shafts are pretty much a mid-spin. So seeing a little bit more, and probably because it's lightweight, just seeing that little bit more out of it when we go on the golf course and with the numbers. Third shaft to test is the Tensei 1K Black at 65 grams. So Mitsubishi actually telling me that this Tensei 1K Black is 67 grams in weight, not 65 that says on the label. They're saying that this is designed for players who are quite strong, those that like to really launch at the golf ball. So we're getting a low launch and low spin. It's quite firm in the tip section. What that means is it's quite rigid down the bottom. So it's going to feel not as soft as what we're getting out of those other 2 shafts. Now, first feelings with this shaft is wow, compared to the other 2, properly heavy, certainly compared to that Red Hazardous. And when I said not as soft, what I kind of probably mean by that is that there's no real play in the head. So it's just, it feels like a really rigid bit of metal running down the shaft. So it's not really moving at all. I don't feel any play down by the ball as that club head tries to catch up with my hands. But I do wonder what the swing weight of this club is. So this is coming out pretty much what I'm used to at D8 with the 1K Black by Tensei. So this should feel for me, well, it should just feel like home, really. I do get the sense, though, when hitting shots with this club out on the golf course, that I would have to continue to hit it really quite hard to get it to work for me properly. But I do think by the end of the round, having to hit this 14 times, probably on average, and then 18 holes of golf, I might be just a little bit tired. But with all that in mind, let's look at the numbers. 153.3 mile an hour off the club face with this Tensei 1K Black 65 grammer. Now, they're saying that this one should, like I said before, it should be low launch, low spin, quite firm in that tip section. So for players that want to go at it a little bit harder, well, we're getting 13.8 in the launch out of this one. So again, not a great deal of difference, but there is a slight lower launch out of this, but it does say it should go lower in the spin, and it does there at 2,275 revs. That is certainly a lot lower than what I'm getting out of the Tensei Blue and the Hazardous Red. Peaking out just a little bit lower again than the other 2 shafts at 36 yards in height, and then an average carry of 264. So that extra little bit of ball speed that I'm getting from it and the lower spin is just getting that ball out there just that little bit longer than the other 2 shafts. But definitely I'm sensing, like I've said on the golf course, I'm sensing that feeling of rigidness. And the final shaft for this particular test is the Hazardous Black at 60 grams, which is the shaft that I use currently in my golf bag. I finally found a shaft that says what it actually is. It's 60 grams and it says it's 60 grams in weight. Now, this particular shaft, very similar to the 1K Black, is designed for players who are a little bit more aggressive with their tempo, those that like to hit the ball quite hard. We've got a stiff butt section, we've got a stiff tip section, but an extra stiff mid section. So the difference between this one and let's say the 1K Black is that we might just feel that club head just a little bit more down at the bottom, just feeling like it's got a little bit more kick to it down the bottom, but it'd be interesting to see what we get out on the golf course. There we go, that feels more like home to me. Oh yeah, what a difference that is. It just feels like to me that I've got just that little bit more play down the bottom there than I had with that 1K Black. I just feel like, I mean, that launch there was actually a decent height, a good height out of that, and it just felt like the club just caught up with my hands and able to be able to push that ball up in the air. And just like the 1K Black, and just like what I'm used to and what I would expect, this particular driver coming in at D8 in the swing weight. Interestingly, actually, the most ball speed that I'm getting out of all 4 of these shafts, but maybe because I'm used to this shaft, maybe a little bit more, but 153.8 mile an hour off the club face. Again, really interesting that it's launching actually the highest out of all of them. And I'm saying that in a fact that it's tiny, really, really small at 14.4, but it is launching a little bit higher. And remember, it's supposed to be a kind of low launching shaft. And then if we look at the spin numbers, a little bit lower than the other 2 shafts of the Hazardous Red and the Tensei, but spinning just a little bit more than what I'm getting out of that Tensei Black. This one giving me 2,355 revs on an average, peaking out a little bit higher because it's launching a bit higher, and then an average carry of 263. So actually slightly different to what I'm getting out of that Tensei Black, but like I said on the golf course, possibly feeling that there's a little bit more play on the bottom of that club for me as a feeling, which feels like I can get that ball to maybe pop up a little bit more in the air than what I'm getting out of that Black shaft, Tensei Black. Well, there you have it. There's my test of the 4 stiff shafts that we're getting in the fitting pack by Titleist here in the UK. I think you can see from the numbers that I'm getting that there's actually not a great deal of difference. And I think the more highly skilled players are maybe going to be able to maneuver these shafts to work for their game and almost get a feel for them. But I do think they are important when it comes to going for a fitting, and I think you have to experience going through different shafts to get a better understanding of maybe what I'm talking about out on the golf course and what relates to feel. Now for me personally, I did like the feel of that Black shaft from Hazardous, which is why I use it. I felt that that 1K Black driver was maybe just a little bit too rigid. On occasions I could get a good drive out there, but I think if I'm playing 18 holes and hitting 14, let's say, tee shots around with a driver, I'm probably going to get a bit exhausted by the time I get to the 18th because it just felt maybe a little bit of hard work. And for those players that maybe want something to launch it a little bit higher, I think that red shaft is going to perform really, really well, give you the spin and control that you want out there. So if you're somebody that has maybe a slow swing tempo and a slow swing speed, that red's going to just pop it out there quite nicely for you. And then I think on a hole, on the average, I think for most golfers out there, that Tensei Blue, I think just works. I think it ticks so many boxes. It does sit in that midsection for so many different players. But I'd like to hear down there in the comments, did you enjoy this video? Did it tick some boxes? Did you have a better understanding now of what these shafts actually do? If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you again on the next video.